use them in newest photography, but they're not really set up to run yet. But I'll take a look at the parcel viewer and I'll send you the link to parcel viewer.
Okay, just all remember, we paid for our share of that.
It's available, and if you go to the GIS website, you can see it there. But I'm not sure
Memorize all the roads in the county.
Oh, yeah.
if you've got the software
Have you had any
necessary
extra
with that.
agendas kicked?
Yeah,
I'll have to take a look
yeah.
and send you the link. Will be the best way.
I think Rochelle prints one out right here.
So this is gonna help.
There's not an agenda in your back.
Yeah, this is gonna be.
I
yeah,
got,
but,
I got a void.
Claire's no longer there with
Need
the,
agenda or minutes?
I got the minutes from the last meeting. I don't have it. Oh, perfect. Now I can follow along.
There you go.
You wouldn't want that.
Hey, Patrick.
You see your neighbor posted everything?
Which neighbor?
Gail and,
Tony?
Nancy and Gail. That farm, looking from your house, Gannett's here, the big one on the right.
Oh, no, I didn't know.
Yeah,
What, did that intrude on your hunting territory?
no, if I see one, it's mine.
Well,
No,
actually, there was a shot up towards your way on Saturday.
yeah, my son,
I was gonna say, that wasn't you?
no, my son. That field next to yours going north,
Yeah.
he's got it posted all the way out to the road, and then across the road from there, and then I walk down to through his little field to get to my stand, and he's got it posted right down there facing me.
Well, that field across from you, that land only goes to like the back of the woods. Behind that, is it Troy?
Sure, yeah,
Troy owns, no.
yeah.
shall we rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is the minutes, resolution 23-220, to accept the minutes of October 18th, 2023. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, any discussion? All in favor? Public hearing, none. Public comment? I don't see any public here. Is there anybody from the public?
No.
Who's hiding behind you, Patrick? Oh, hi. Okay, workshop to continue discussion of cost savings strategy of the jail solar array.
All right. In response to a question from Commissioner Stetkus last meeting, I did some research into net energy billing, and that's the impact that small to medium solar arrays have on your CMP bill and my CMP bill. And the long and the short of it is, when they try to incentivize small-scale solar, they put a tariff out there, which is a set price that CMP has to pay for energy that's generated by a small solar array, less than 2 megawatts. And that's what generates the credit on your bill if you're buying from that solar array. So right now, the tariff is 23 cents. That's what CMP pays, 23.5 cents per kilowatt from a small solar array. That is more than the market rate, so CMP actually loses money on that. So they go to the PUC and say, we would like to pass on these costs, they're called stranded costs, across all of our customer base. So every CMP bill that is not using community solar, every CMP bill gets about a 4.3% charge added to it on average. And that's what I like to think is that's our contribution to subsidizing solar. And so Joel was asking about the impact this would have on people in our area. And so for an average person that uses 550 kilowatts of residential electric, it's about a $6-7 charge on your bill, which is, your bill's probably $160, $170, based on that usage. So it is an impact. However, I also wanted to do some research in regards to,
I hate to interrupt, but So the $6 or whatever, that's just from the projected jail expansion, or just all the solar?
That's a good point. No, not from our project. Our project would be less than a few cents,
Oh, okay, that's,
because it's overall. And
That's the overall.
my guess is, right now in state legislature, these tariffs are in place for 20 years, and they raise every year by 2.5%. So my guess is, every few years, CMP is going to go back to the PUC asking for more ability to charge all the customer base for these stranded costs. So that's kind of the other side of the solar incentives, that it does hit every ratepayer in the state, because also Versant and the other companies do the same thing. But to your point, if we were to do a jail program of less than 1 megawatt solar array, and we were to buy electricity from it through a PPO, it would have an impact on people's power bills, but it would only really be a matter of a few cents. And the other fact of the matter is, everybody that gets into the solar game that way, they're still going to have a small impact on people's power bills. To Commissioner Johnson's point last week, I did talk with Jeff Hewitt over in Skowhegan. They are still kind of in negotiations to do a less than 1 megawatt, so about the same size, really in that same general area, because that kind of backs up to the jail is the landfill.
Right.
That's been closed. So, and he sent me some information that Fairfield, they put together language for their landfill solar array back 2 or 3 years ago. So I've been looking into it, but I just wanted to run something by you, so that you have it kind of in the back of your mind when we do budgeting. The average tax bill, property tax bill in Somerset's about $2,000. Now, of course, there are bigger and smaller, but on average, it's about $2,000 property tax bill, and that's adjusted for this, all the recent revaluations. So every time we save $100,000, that nets out to about $13 on somebody's tax bill. Every time we raise $100,000 in our budget, that nets out to about to about $13. You multiply that by a factor of 10, so if you raise your budget $1 million, that's an impact of $130-some on everybody's tax bill. So in previous works, I've always known that the board kind of likes to have that in the back of their mind when they're doing budgeting and budget impact and that sort of thing. What's the impact to the taxpayer? So my question to you today in regards to the solar project, would you like Patrick and I to continue down this road to try to get some more hard numbers for a PPO? What we're not recommending that we buy and spend $1.5 million to buy a solar array. We're recommending that we look into a purchase power agreement where someone else bears the cost and responsibility and liability for it, and we would just be able to buy the energy from that solar array at a lower rate than what we're paying now. So.
I think a further question is, would it be more cost-effective for us just to subscribe to an existing solar array and see what those costs would be via having somebody come in and building one and having to deal with future issues down the road with an existing physical plant?
Well, there was an issue related to that me and Tim actually attended a lunch and learn, and one of those, when you participate, you usually buy a percentage of that solar farm. The issue that they were having, at least one person was having, was they bought a percentage and the solar field was actually producing more than it was estimated at, so they were having to pay for that extra usage, even though they weren't using it. So their CMP bill was running a credit balance that they could never recognize the credit. So we can do that, but when you're doing that, you're actually purchasing usually a percentage of the capability of that farm.
Now, this is a question that will once again reveal how ignorant I am. But I get these things in the mail about reduce your electricity by 15%. Is that what we're talking about here? You just buy into somebody else's?
Right, that's kind of what the chairman is talking about.
No, you don't have to build anything, you just sign up.
because a lot of these, like Patrick's neighbors, Patrick lives right across the street from two 4.9 megawatt solar arrays, and the reason they're 4.9 is they can be tax exempt, and they can generate what they call community solar. And so people can buy into those. Depending on your experience, I haven't heard a lot of glowing reports that you're actually saving 15%. If we were to do a PPO from the numbers we've initially looked at, we could save 50%. So it may be.
So a PPO is not what I just.
PPO is building, having somebody build the solar array at the jail.
Oh, okay. But
Buying into community solar is what you're getting in the mail for 15% off. But that 15%
so the PPO
off
is
having somebody build the solar array at the jail, and we purchase the power.
So they own the solar array,
Right,
but we host it.
right, and we promise to buy all the energy.
We still own the land though, right?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
so we don't have any upfront.
The beauty of a PPO is there's no upfront costs, and you can structure the contract in such a way that there's bonds and that there's guarantees that if something goes south, they're responsible for it. Decommissioning, they're responsible for all that, putting the land back the way it was.
And other towns are doing this.
Many, in 2023 was the first year that these options were available to municipalities and school districts with the incentives that were always there for private. So the 30% tax credit was always something that private companies could benefit from. Well, non-tax-paying entities like municipalities didn't qualify for a tax credit. So now the government says you can get a 30% reduction in costs if you own it or build it. So, but speaking of incentives, the webinar that Patrick and I attended last week mentioned holding off until the early part of '24 because they expect more incentives in Maine to come down the road for projects like this.
I suppose we ought to see what happens in this referendum too.
Right.
Is a lot of trees on that property?
Well, it all depends on where we're doing it at the jail. We've looked at some of the areas that are currently occupied by septic field, and there's other areas that are not heavily forested. We only need 5 acres for this.
Oh, just 5 acres?
Yeah,
They could actually, of course, with Sheriff's blessing, could utilize the front field.
Yeah.
The front field, when you're going in, that's about 10 acres. So they could actually keep half of that for the garden and whatever, and then the other half for the solar field.
Oh, right up front by the
Right up
road?
front.
Yeah.
That's where they actually suggested.
Yeah, 'cause it's
The septic
No,
system
no.
sounds good. Does that screw it up?
I don't know how feasible that is. Obviously, closed landfills are not a problem, but I don't know about that. So I think it sounds like it's worth pursuing and looking at what other incentives may come down the road, and also looking into maybe tapping into existing solar.
So in the webinar you went to, did they discuss the difference between percentage and allocation, or are they the same thing?
That question didn't come up. The only thing that came up was they gave the example of the person that, I don't know, I think it was the school district.
Yep.
That actually was tied in as a percentage, and they weren't utilizing all the credit.
And they were trying to get out.
They're trying to get out of it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know of a person who has their own private solar array that they use, and they have a tough time using the credits themselves, and they're upset with that. I did have some discussion with legislators about doing something about that, so people would
I
not
think
lose their
credit-
credits, but I don't know if that went anywhere.
Well, the credits, I think, stay up there for 12 months, and then they fall off.
They do, yes, it's 1 year, and then they're gone, and that's one of the things that I was talking with legislators about, extending those credits, banking them, or being able to provide them elsewhere to somebody else who might have needed them, so that they weren't just lost.
So we like maybe have like an employee program where the employees get credits.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Well, I for one think you should keep doing what you're doing as far as, I think we should pursue this.
Okay.
I think we should keep going that way too. But I did want to entertain the thought of just plugging into one that was out there. If this is gonna save us more money than an existing array and purchasing percentages or allocations or whatever the term is of the day, we look into it.
Just for a little clarification for me, this is something that is not ours, so they'll be responsible for maintenance, all the aspects of
Right.
that. Is this going to provide energy for any other source other than the jail?
So right now, I can't think of the megawatts or the kilowatts off the top of my head.
A little over 900,000,
So if we had a,
and the jail is about 1.2 million.
thank you, okay, so if we had a solar array that generated about 900,000 kilowatts a year, the jail already consumes 1.2 or 1.2 megawatts, so
Okay.
it wouldn't, the jail wouldn't consume all, well, they would consume all the energy that's generated. So, and once you start talking about, well, why don't we create a bigger solar array, then it becomes much more complicated, and there's much more red tape once you go above that 1 megawatt threshold.
I was just curious in terms of that, if it was something that would be produced in, to the level where it could provide other situations with energy, where would we be in that in terms of profit or money made for us for the jail? Or
Yeah. So far, the company that we talked to, Revision Energy, they were reluctant to quote a project larger than 1
Okay.
megawatt.
Okay.
And I found that the case with Skowhegan as well. Their project that they're talking about is less than 1 megawatt for that same reason.
What kind of contract agreement is going to take place due to the fact that it's property of the jail or Somerset County?
No, it's same as it is with most municipal solars, where schools have it on their property or
Okay.
towns have it on theirs.
And one of the things about maintaining it being private is that that solar array
Yeah.
is all property taxable.
Right.
So,
That's true.
Yeah.
For the good old town of Madison.
If
So-
we do it at the front, if we progress that far, if we do it at the front, it is going to have a less security risk for them.
That's a good point.
Yep. Plus, Patrick will be 2/3 of the way surrounded by solar.
Yeah, I don't know what the conspiracy.
So security for, you mean,
It's more visible so that,
Well, so the people that would have to work on it would just be working on the front part of
Yeah.
that field instead of having,
Yeah,
once you go past the
Parking lot.
parking lot, you've got to check in, there's
I get your point, okay. Understood.
less chances of contraband, and I'm not suggesting that there would be, but contraband.
You can count on it.
yeah, you can count on it. Yeah. All right, continue on, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Then we will go on to our workshop, item number 2, to discuss personnel policy items.
so these came up at previous meetings, plus I added a few things that I've been working on myself here. But first, if you have in your packets, I had like a half-page summary of the employee resignation portion. And what we had been talking about at the last meeting was, what if a department head seeks to provide a term of separation that's different, that's not in policy? And right now, in policy, really the only thing that the county commissioners can do is the second paragraph, upon the request of the department head, the county commissioners may grant that an employee be allowed to leave prior to the 10 days with pay if this would be beneficial, so on and so forth. So down at the bottom there, in the bold underlined printing, I just recommended, if the commissioners wanted to, should we put something in there that says, should the department head seek to provide terms of separation outside those listed in the policy, that must be approved by the county commissioner. So I just offer that to you and see what your thoughts are.
I think that was something that you had said.
Yeah, I thought we sort of liked this when we talked about
Yeah.
it the last time we met, which is,
That was just the three of us.
That's kind of why, it didn't seem to me that you wanted to rewrite an extensive amount of policy.
But we didn't want to kind of flag the possibility for disgruntled employees that if they wanted to, they could somehow get out of policy.
Okay.
Just-
Get out of jail free
We were
card.
going to advertise this. It seems like a rare,
Right,
rare thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I like this.
Okay, so that's if we were to move forward with something like that, and I could bring to you an updated policy
Yeah.
with changes, okay. All right, if nothing else, on A, so item B was about exit interviews, and I provided you all that's in the personnel policy, which is one line that says Somerset County reserves the right to conduct exit interviews. And then Leanne provided the rest of the information there because she went back and dug up a little bit of history, and she explains a little bit of the process of what we provide for exit interviews. So I didn't know if the commissioners had any questions about that.
This is, it seems that section 9.4 is a completely meaningless statement. That is pure window dressing.
It's under the category of section 9, which is other policies. Well, it's really kind of a catch-all chapter.
If someone's leaving, they're not under no obligation to submit to an exit interview. They can just give them the big salute and just head out the door. And
Right.
if we say, well, we reserve a right to do this, it's absolutely unenforceable, meaningless BS, so. But I'm all for having department heads and other people say, hey, do you mind, you're leaving, we're sad to see you go, can
Yep.
you tell us what was good and what was bad, and have a format, or maybe we do, I probably do, and if they want to do it, that's great, but
Right.
there's no way we can enforce it, or, if they don't want to do it, it's, forget it.
Well, we've never attempted to enforce it.
Right.
But we've always we've always offered them
Provided,
the exit interview.
So I guess if it needs any clarification, Leanne can help, but it's pretty simple that when we have a resignation, we bring that resignation to the board, you accept that resignation at a meeting, and immediately after that, a letter is sent out to that individual with the questionnaire. If they want to, they can return it, and as Leanne showed, we've seen a couple over the years, but certainly not maybe more than 10% of people that actually leave.
Perhaps based on John's thought, that wording could be changed a little bit. Because I can see where you're saying that, to reserve the right to conduct means that we can, or it seems to me like you can almost read into that, we can mandate
Yeah.
an exit interview, which we can. So I just wonder if that should be changed up a little bit.
Would it be good to have some more hortatory language, like the Somerset County benefits from information provided by departing employees, and all employees are encouraged to participate in an exit interview if they are willing to do so upon their,
It's a good thing,
whatever.
it's a good thing this meeting's recorded, so I can get all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may be better to put this, if we did a little snippet of language on exit interviews, to put it under the resignation category.
Yep.
So that it kind of flows, rather than this, you almost would have to really search the whole policy to find this.
Dave?
Well, my thought was, they're not required to do this, but what if we made it worth their while? We could give them $50 to fill one out. If we really wanted the information, and literally pay them to get it.
Good gracious,
There's
that's
a lot of mischief.
Well, the question
That
is,
seems like a little
do we
slippery.
get one out of, 10 or 12 that leave? If you're desperate for information, you can encourage them all you want, but if you make it worth their while, you'll get more.
Well, aren't there two kinds of employees that leave? One, they're mad, they don't like it, they don't want to have any more to do with the place, they hate everybody here. If you ask them to submit to an exit interview, they put a lot of, well, I don't want to overstate it, but, they're not really happy.
not-
And then there are other people that you hate to leave, and they have to leave for one reason or another, you wish they wouldn't, you say, gee, Tell us why, and is there something we could do better?
Yep.
And those people are probably gonna be willing to sit down with you and have a meaningful discussion, so.
I was just throwing it out there as an option, you know?
Well, I will
Why
say,
spend extra money?
Well, if we can take it out of your budget.
I leave-
Tip funding, it's a tip.
Sounds like community benefit to me.
No, it's good.
They'd have to put in 50, they'd have to match it, though.
I mean, if somehow we could encourage them, I don't think we should pay them to do an exit interview, but
Right.
my thought on exit interviews are that they can help us to figure out patterns of reasons why at some point in time there's a mass exodus from the building and we really need to really look at something
Right.
hard here and say, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Or it gives us a track record of
Yeah.
of things ongoing. I mean, obviously, they don't have to. I do think that that statement there is a little strong and almost makes it look like we could mandate it if we so choose to, and I don't think we should have that in there written like that, so.
I think that's a good point, is if the commissioners value the information, then we need to word it a little bit better that way.
well, I will say the sheriff told us that one reason why he lost a lot was it was having price wars around
Oh,
the
yeah.
community.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean,
The wage
there's no
wars.
exit interview there, they're gonna go for $2 an hour more over here.
And I think we get good information from all of our department heads because they know the details. Sometimes when you see a one-line email that you're making a vote to accept, you don't get all the backstory, but you certainly could, ask, and I'm sure they'll tell you what's going on.
And we can also, as we usually provide for a written, but we should also be able to ask for a verbal that would be anonymous, so that the interviewer could put down verbal interview accepted.
Yeah.
And then there'd be nothing in writing, but we'd be able to capture the needed information as to what we can do to improve or change.
Okay.
All right.
Can I, just as far as the whole resignation deal, this sort of came up, a recent matter, and there's one rule here that says a resignation is effective immediately. So if somebody says, but this section here that you have here, written notice, says, all employees will provide written notification of their intent to resign. So, is that a resignation with an effective date later on, or is that, it's really a big nothing until,
Yeah, that's the intent to resign, and it's a 10-day.
so if somebody says, writes a letter or an email, a written document saying, I'm resigning effective, December 10th. Is that a resignation, or is that?
I would consider it a resignation because the intent of the 10-day, 2-week notice is, in a perfect world, to allow your employer to start lining up a replacement.
Right.
And so, and again, in a perfect world, that person may be here a few days, that they can train the new person. And I think that's where the history of a 2 weeks notice has always come from. Now, in today's hiring world, it's crazy. But the fact that it's accepted within 24 hours means that if someone makes a rash decision to resign, they kind of have 24 hours to think about it, and then they can pull it back with their department head. But if not, if they think about it for a couple of days and they say, I don't really want to resign, that needs to come before the commissioners. That's my reading of what that language says.
Okay, but I don't want to bog things down here, but 561 says, okay, well, maybe my personnel policy is out of date, because it doesn't actually say, no, I got two different things. The policy I was given says all resignations are deemed accepted immediately upon submission to the county administrator, but this one here says all resignations will be accepted 24 hours after submission.
You've stumbled on something that
Which is it?
Patrick and Leanne and I have stumbled upon, is that there are multiple versions of our employee handbook floating around out there. Now that I know that you have the wrong one, I'll get you the right one.
How will I know which is right?
It's 66 pages, not 68 pages. That's the only way we've been able to differentiate it. And I'm not laying blame on anybody here, it's just, when we found this information, I went back to Mike Pike, who had helped work on it, and I said, which is the right version? And so Mike and Leanne and I found the version that we believe is the correct version. But there were many, unfortunately, there were just multiple copies of it floating around. As it was being updated, it was being saved in different places.
Is there some record that indicates when the county made this change?
Yep, so the one that I'm referring to, not the one you have, was approved in December of '22, so 10 months ago.
Well, I wish I had known that a couple of months ago, because I was
Well, I
pounding off about how
Yeah,
certain resignation was effective
immediately.
immediately. Apparently it wasn't.
Right.
So.
Right, no, yeah, I apologize for that.
Huh?
We set you up.
Yeah. So actually, for a while there, I thought it was just me that couldn't find the right one. And then Patrick came up and showed me both copies and said, which one's right? And I said, go ask Leanne. And then you've obviously brought up the fact that you have the old one.
I'm throwing it out right now.
Okay.
And I'm waiting a new.
We'll get you a new one.
So long as you're making copies of the new one.
Yeah, we'll make sure everybody has this new one.
Make sure
Which is,
and make sure it's dated.
and that was the other thing, the document itself was not dated. So I had to go through the minutes to see when it was approved and so on and so forth. But this is why I'm glad that you asked for a couple things to be reviewed on the handbook/personnel policy, because I found a few things I just want to bring to your attention. And the fact that we're literally not on the same page is one of them, so hopefully we can rectify that. So item C is a paragraph about sick time. So there's a document that says that this language was approved by the commissioners in October of '22, creating a sick leave bank that utilizes unused sick time accumulated by former employees who have left county service. I dug into this a little bit because I'd never seen this type of policy anywhere before. And I inquired why we're going to leave sick time from past employees on the books. My first thought is the auditors would have an issue with that, because it leaves you an extended liability even after a person has left employment. But looking for this in the updated personnel policies, this language, even though it was approved by the commissioners in their minutes in October, it was never added to the policy that we're using. So it kind of, and I don't know if there was a conversation. I don't know if there was a conversation somewhere after October, between October and December, that it never made it, or maybe it was just overlooked and not added in. So here's my take on this. You already have language in the policy that talks about the ability to donate your sick time if you're an active employee. That already exists. I would not recommend utilizing this language about banking former employees' sick time.
No.
No, not at all. I think that's probably why it was left out. I don't think that was actually.
Absolutely not.
Do you guys remember discussing this?
I don't know.
Hired 2 years
If we
ago,
did,
wanted
we-
to donate her sick time, offered to donate it to the bank, and was told that she could not do that.
Yeah, this does make for interesting conversations as you kind of, to work your way through this. So the fact that it's not in the edition that was passed by the commissioners in December, you're all okay with leaving it that way and just kind of letting this old language.
Should we, at a later date in the not too distant future, actually rescind, if that was, I mean, not to get too hinky about it, but if the board actually passed that measure, I think the board ought to undo it officially.
I can find the minutes where they did that.
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
That was a crazy meeting because that's the same meeting you hired Leanne at, so.
Well, let's did it right there. I wonder.
Well, they did something right. One thing right.
So there's three more things I want to bring to your attention, and I appreciate it. So on item D, it's vacation time accumulation, and I'm just putting this out here for thought. I understand vacation time, I understand the benefit of it, I understand we're trying to create a culture where people can work hard but also take time off. So In the updated policy, we raised the amount you carry forward to 120 hours if you don't use it. So that's 3 weeks vacation that you haven't used, you can carry it forward to the next year. If you're a 20-year employee, you can carry 4 weeks, 160 hours forward. Patrick shared with me some information, and so I've been kind of looking at it and realizing that there are some county employees that are going to have a hard time using all this vacation. And right now, policy is clear. If you don't use it, you lose it. Policy is clear. Practice is not. And so we might need to address this in a future discussion. But I have a hard time even comprehending taking 11 weeks of vacation. So if I am one of those long-term employees and I got 280 hours on my anniversary date and I haven't used 160 and I carry that over, now within the context of a year, I'm going to take 11 weeks vacation? Maybe it's just me. I couldn't fathom doing that.
What's the alternative? What's a rational and modern way of handling the situation?
Well, the policy basically says you're going to eliminate everything over that 440 or 320 or whatever it is that an employee has earned, which means you're going to make some people unhappy when you do that. So one option is enforcing the policy. The other option is taking a look at some of your longtime employees and say, do we do a one-time buyout? Do we budget for that in the upcoming budget year? Do a one-time buyout, but say, after this, we promise we're not going to carry any more over according to policy. Or another option that some policies include is a case-by-case basis where either you as the commission or me and Leanne as HR would take the extenuating circumstances into consideration and bring you an option for something outside of policy, which I know we don't like to do, because once we have policy, we like to follow it. We don't want to have a bunch of extenuating circumstances where you're outside of policy. But you've got people who have been filling in for other employees. You've got people that have been working overtime because there's not enough staff. And these people come up to their anniversary date, they're going to lose 100 hours that they've earned. And so I'm not asking for a solution today, I'm just making you aware of it so we can kind of work through this process, so.
I think this has even a deeper discussion when it comes down to union contracts, because I know with the communications contract, they top out at 240 hours. However, with their schedule that they work, they can take 24 hours off and get a week's vacation because of the way the rotation works. So at 240, that gives them 10 weeks a year. Now, they're allowed to carry over 120, which is another 5 weeks a year. So technically, they could have, using 24 hours to get a week's vacation, the way the schedule works, they could have 15 weeks off in a year. So it's kind of,
Is there if we went to another planet and saw how they dealt with things, I mean, is there a world where people max out, like
Yes.
at a number of vacations which is actually reasonable? So let's say 5 or 6 weeks, that every employee, no matter how long you work for Somerset County, you're always going to get, after a number of years, whatever the number is, 4, 5, or 6 weeks, which is a lot of vacation for a lot of people. And particularly if you never take it, or you're unable to take it, why don't we just, what is, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about again, but what is wrong with just saying, you can work here as long as you like, but you're never going to get more than 6 weeks vacation?
Well, the complication is going to be in adjusting the union contracts.
Right.
But even for the non-union employees, I think one of the things municipalities have always done is they say to potential hires, we really can't pay you what the private sector's paying you, but we can give you more vacation. Unfortunately, we've leaned so much on that we've made it an albatross, because we really don't know what to do with it. We promise people they're going to earn all this, but they can't use it, and so they end up losing it. So, if you were to do something where you adjust for vacation time, you would also have to, I believe you'd also have to compensate that with increases in pay. And so, because essentially you're taking something away from an employee, there has to be something that makes that,
Well,
feasible.
I see what you're saying. from my work experience, the idea of taking more than 4 or 5 weeks vacation a year is like, well, how am I gonna do any work if I do that?
It's
And I think most people feel that way, so, and if I don't take my 4 weeks of vacation in a particular year, then they're gonna give me 8 for the next year, the 4 that I didn't take plus the new 4, and not, I'm no more likely to use the 8 than I was the year before.
Yeah.
So I'm just accumulating this meaningless vacation time, which I will never use.
I have the experience in the private world, the vacation policy here isn't that abnormal to what's out there.
Okay.
No.
Because I work for a German company, and everyone starts with 6 weeks of vacation. You know,
Well, they all go to the south of France there,
well, yeah,
the European mentality.
they take the whole month of August off.
Yeah.
What's,
But
There you
But
go.
there's only one August in the year, is my point, so, what's the point of doubling your vacation time if you don't use it in one year, you get
Right.
twice as much that you're not gonna use the next year?
Yeah.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me,
so,
but I may be missing something.
was there a particular model that the county went after when they set up this?
Again, the only person I can really talk to about this is Mike, because Mike was working on it with Dawn when they made these upgrades. And I think, was it last year they upped it from
Yeah,
80 to 120?
the policy was
Yeah.
changed to somewhat mirror what the union contracts were.
Okay,
It's just,
Because the non-union was set at 80-hour carryover, but all the union contracts were 120 or 160. So they actually adjusted the non-union up to mirror somewhat what the union contracts had.
but those union contracts say that's the max, and they lose anything they don't go over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the same as this.
okay.
so it's a difficult thing, and I worked for the state for 10.5 years, they have a similar vacation program, it'd be worth looking into that a little bit, because when we got to the point where we got close to the end of the year, we were mandated to take
Yeah.
the time. And, I mean, there's no easy way, but when you've got situations and you're lacking employees and you don't have the crew you need or whatever the case may be, but somehow I would think that this would have to have some sort of mandate, or something that would,
Yeah. It's one thing to expect people that work clerical or in an office to be able to schedule the time, unless they're short-staffed. To me, once you factor in law enforcement and corrections, it's a different,
this is a different thing, and that's where the difficulty lies is, I mean, when you're down 5 deputies or you're
Right.
down communications people or
Right.
whatever the case may
Right.
be, you're not gonna be able to allot these individuals their vacation time if they need it and want it. So some type of, I hate to use this word, compensation should probably be looked at to see, what could be done.
so we'll,
Keep that from accumulating, but also
Yeah.
fairly treating them and getting them what they
I understand,
need.
on the finance side, once you open the door
Yeah.
of paying that, they're gonna use it as a savings account.
Right, and that's why I say it's a sticky wicket, it doesn't matter which way you turn with this, so, to me, it's almost like the county's gotta decide, do we mandate that you have to take
right,
this vacation time? Well, lots of times with the state, we got ourselves towards the end of the year, and all of a sudden, we're down in employees because
right.
everybody has to take vacation time to use up their time, so they don't go over, whatever the
Yeah.
situation is, but.
But when you say savings account, Patrick, are you saying, you work for a place for so long, you never take any vacation, and then when you leave, you've got, 12 weeks of vacation, which is sort of money in the bank?
If you start a program like at the end of December of each year, you're gonna pay out any balances that are over this amount, then it's gonna be like a savings account. People are gonna look at it and go, geez, I can use this money for Christmas, so I won't take vacations throughout the year. But that's gonna cost the county more.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Because we only budget for 280 hours for, full-time person. Because it's either gonna be covered in vacation, time work. But if you allow them to work the 2,080 hours, then you pay them for another 80 to 120 hours of vacation, that's gonna be over our budget. We don't
yeah,
budget for that.
Yeah.
you budget for that.
So I think
Interesting.
this is food for thought as we get closer to budget season to take a look at, what we might do with these policies. The other thing I wanted to mention is what Leanne and Mike and I learned about at our labor law meeting, which was the paid family medical leave, which was going to take effect in '26. So as of January 1st, '26, they will have spent a whole year taking 1% of pay in a payroll tax and creating a fund where people who qualify for medical leave can get up to 12 weeks and in some cases 16 weeks. They can be paid from this fund the state creates up to 90% of their wages, up to $100 or $1,037 a week. So it's a very generous program, and I think it's important for us to spend the next couple of years thinking about how this impacts your vacation sick time. The other thing, just going back to vacation time for a minute, is state law requires an employer to pay out any unused vacation at the end of a person's work time. But that's any unused vacation per your policy. So you can create caps in your policy that keep you from having to pay out hundreds and hundreds of hours of vacation time. So paid family medical leave it's passed in the state budget unless the legislature changes it, which I don't think it's likely. It's on its way, so.
Well, that's why we have the caps, even though we have the extensions.
Right.
We already have the cap.
Right.
But
But we're
we're
gonna-
allowed for the extensions because we know that we've had some incidences where we've needed to allow employees to carry over their vacation time.
Yeah.
But they don't capture that vacation time as a savings account when they leave.
Right.
So, I guess another question I have related to this, and it comes to my mind because of having seen it used. Are there certain personnel within the frame of Somerset County that accumulate comp time
It's in policy, right? Comp time.
policy?
Yeah.
Dave?
It's mostly union employees. We have some non that do it, but very few.
It kind of
Union.
figures into this.
Exactly.
So-
Yeah.
Dave, did you have an example of comp time?
Yeah, I can get comp time, but you have to use it within
Within a certain time.
or something like that. When I was not 40 hours a week and I was working less, I would generate a lot more comp time because when I'm up north doing work, it made no sense, say, okay, my 8 hours are up, I'm gonna, have to, I have to, about 2 hours early, drive home. So I would spend less time working on my materials than driving. So I would often put in 10 or 12-hour days. That would go down to comp time, and I'd just have short days on other days of the week to use it. But comp time is pretty rare for me nowadays.
Didn't the Supreme Court outlaw comp time back in the 80s? And I guess it's come back. It was an excuse for not paying overtime.
Right.
And they squashed that like a bug.
But it's still in most of our contracts.
Yeah.
So.
But if you have
Mike?
time and you leave, we pay that out too, because that's how we work.
I think you just opened up a whole interesting conversation in that you haven't even discussed sick time. And I know the union contract for communications, they're allowed to buy out on sick time after X number of years. However, I'm non-union, I don't get any
You don't get
buyout
that.
on my sick time. So,
That's grandfather, it's no longer, it's the grandfather.
correct, but you're talking 20-year employees, who have time on the books. It's the same thing. I have 2 dispatchers who have 20 years who will get sick time buyout when they leave up to, 120 days, 120 hours? Whatever it is anyway.
Yeah, I've got over 1,000 sick time hours set aside.
But what that does is that also creates some conversation for people who, as you're looking to promote people who are now covered by a union contract and they've got those benefits and they say, wait a minute, I'm gonna step up, I'm gonna lose that.
Right.
I mean, so it is, it's a whole, it's a real deep conversation once you start putting all the pieces together.
This is a pretty lucrative vacation and sick time package compared to a lot that I've seen, and it may be our best interest to look at changing that policy a little bit and lessening that. I know that's not great for the people that have been here, and maybe we could grandfather it somehow, but ongoing, it might be something that we need to look at.
That's something like we did with sick time.
Right.
Because back when I first came, majority, almost all the union employees was able to get at least a portion of their sick time paid out.
Yeah.
But in new contracts, all the new employees don't get that.
Don't
It's
get
the
that.
older employees that have.
Yeah. We've grandfathered the older employees, and the
Right.
new ones don't get that. So
Okay,
Mike's 20-year employees are grandfathered into that policy.
Yep.
good.
And we've never banked any of the money that's owed.
No, yeah,
We are? Good.
we got about 400,000 set aside.
Okay, good.
I'm glad that this spawned a good conversation, and like Mike says, maybe just the beginning of a good conversation. And I appreciate the long-term employee's perspective on it, because coming into it new, it's like, I'm just reading all this for the first time, so. Two more things. One, state law 2021 says that every employee has to pay, or has to provide earned paid leave to every employee, regardless of how much that employee works. So in our personnel policy, we provide it, we provide sick time and vacation time. But if you're a reserve deputy, or a per diem employee, or a part-time employee, very, light in your schedule, state law still requires that we put aside a little bit of earned paid leave for everyone. And I recommend that you have language in your personnel policy that addresses this. So this page I gave you is from the town of Madison's personnel policy. It's not perfect, but it basically addresses this. And so I think, from what Patrick shared with me, there's a couple of dozen employees since this law went into effect that have been accumulating earned paid leave. And so what this policy does, it caps it at 40 hours in 1 year, and there's no payout. There's no payout on it according to policy. So if a person leaves, they don't get any benefit in dollars for this earned paid leave. It's another complicated state law that just makes doing business a little trickier. But I would recommend that you have a policy on it. Any questions on that?
I don't have that.
What's that?
I don't think I have that.
It's
It should have been
the
in.
last page of the,
Last page of the work.
Yeah,
Oh, I see, oh, yeah, got it, yeah.
You found it?
I found it.
Definitely should be
There we
something.
go.
you're welcome. Look at that. And we can continue to certainly workshop the personnel policy and maybe incorporate into some resolutions some of the things that are kind of low-hanging fruit that are easy to update.
yeah, it'd be great to come back to us with kind of a menu of specific changes based on these
Yep.
discussions, and we could just vote on them.
Yep.
And not necessarily all together, but one at a time.
Right.
Because I think we have some consensus here.
So one last thing, and it pertains to, a discussion that Leanne and I had about this coming Christmas and New Year's, and the chairman asked that we put a resolution. So this kind of gives you some background to Resolution 223. So the policy says that when you have a holiday that falls on a Saturday, you observe it on Friday. If the holiday falls on a Sunday, you observe it on Monday. Now, in the case of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, those are full holidays for employees. Christmas Eve is on a Sunday, so we'd say, okay, we'll recognize that on Monday. Well, Christmas is Monday. So are we giving Monday and Tuesday off, or are we giving Friday and Monday off? I recommend, after thinking about it and talking to other people, trying to figure out when the state might be open or closed. And sometimes the state just kind of throws you a surprise and says, hey, we're closed. But I would recommend that we take the 23rd of December, which is that Friday, no, the 22nd, which is that Friday, and then Christmas Day, which is Monday. And the same thing applies to New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. On New Year's Eve, we, in policy, close at noon. So if we have a half day on New Year's Day, or New Year's Eve, and a full day on New Year's, then that half day really should be applied on Friday, and then New Year's Day on Monday. But it's not explicitly spelled out in policy that way. So we'll have to deal with this every 7 years when Christmas falls on a Monday.
I don't think we should change our policy. I think we should just vote on it every 7 years.
Well, that's why there's a resolution for you to vote on that. So now you know what that resolution will be when you get there. And that's all I had on the personnel policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you.
for putting that all together. Thank you, thank you.
Okay. New agenda items, commissioners only. Anything new? No? No, okay. Finance reporting.
The month of October is not completely closed yet, so I'll have the updated numbers to you during next meeting. But we do have a look at the head count. Head count as of the 1st of November, we still have 16 positions open, but that's down from prior month. The jail is actually down to 4 open positions currently.
Nice.
As of November 1st, I don't know if we have any turnover since.
Nothing on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
So that correlates into our finances, and at this rate, the county is trying to be $1 million favorable to budget because we can't fill the position. So hopefully that changes.
There you go, $1 million to buy out all the vacation time. Careful. Administrative report.
So I included my bullet points in there, but I did want to take just a moment to talk about a conversation that I had with John Pottle about the CMP corridor TIF. So we met on Zoom with some folks from DECD yesterday to talk about this, and here's one of the complications. A TIF cannot consume more than 5% of a municipality's overall valuation. Our municipality we're talking about is a UT, which has a valuation of just under $1 billion. And the existing land that's dedicated to CMP's project is already valued at over $109 million. So it represents more than 10% of the total value. And so there's a couple of options that we have to look at to stay in that 5% threshold. One option is doing what's called a single taxpayer TIF, which doesn't consider the threshold, but it doesn't give you the option of spending money throughout the UT. It only can be spent in the 9 townships that are impacted by the corridor. So I had Dave look up those 9 townships and tell me how much infrastructure is there, how many buildings, how many roads, how many bridges, and really only in Concord and Moxie Gore, 2 out of the 9 has any infrastructure. So there's really, we would struggle to spend TIF money in those 9 very low populated, low infrastructure areas. So the other option is to do a TIF, cap it at that 5%, and basically collect a lower amount of money, but you could spend that money in those townships, or you could spend it in Rockwood, you could spend it in Lexington, you could spend it in all the areas where there is more infrastructure that we really need to take care of, buildings, roads, bridges, dams, that sort of thing. So what I told John was, my take is, I think the commissioners would rather have a smaller pot of money that they could spend on the entire UT than a larger pot of money that they probably couldn't spend all of it in those particular townships. So we haven't had conversations with CMP yet about their valuation and what their anticipation is. But, I'm going to throw out some wild numbers here. Assuming it's $100 to $200 million worth of more valuation, the larger pot of money could be between $2 and $3 million a year that you would have to spend, which is more than our current UT budget altogether. If we were to get a smaller pot of money, what I told John Pottle was, I think it's reasonable to be able to spend $1 million a year in TIF on the entire UT. So that's kind of the direction that I'm recommending that we pursue, is a structure of this TIF where you may not be capturing all the valuation, but you're capturing enough, and you're able to spend it in all the areas of the UT. So I just wanted to give you that update and try to tackle any questions. And there is not going to be a community benefit with this project. So-
That seems to be peculiar to wind projects. I haven't seen it.
Right, and if
It's in
you
the
remember,
wind power statute.
if you remember when
Yeah.
when John and Andy from Eaton Peabody were here, they were kind of alluding to, DECD is getting a little bit pumping the brakes on these ideas unless there's a statute or something like that. So,
Well, the way you pose it, obviously the second alternative is the best. So it's kind of a no-brainer in my view.
okay. And hopefully next time I give a report, or maybe in late November, early December, we should have some numbers from CMP so you can actually get an idea how much a TIF could generate.
Yeah.
So,
I'd also like to know more about the 9
yep,
units.
those particular townships.
Those particular townships,
Yeah.
to see how $2 million could affect them in a
Right.
positive way. If we
Pave all the dirt roads up there.
We can send Dave door to door and just do a survey.
There aren't many, I mean, there's several of the townships of the 9, there's no buildings, there's no population, they're just woods. Plenty of dirt roads, but no people,
No.
except during hunting season, and there's a lost folks.
There you go.
And the dirt roads are all private.
Yes, they are all private. Most of them are open for public use, but they are private and they can be gated off
Right.
if the landowner decides it needs to be.
I guess the other thing that would be interesting to find out with those particular areas is who owns what and where.
Yeah, I've got all the tax records, so
Yeah.
I can generate a list of who owns the properties in all 9 if you want to see.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would like to see that.
When you get into like Concord, or even Moxie Gore, you'll have a lot of small landowners.
Right, yeah.
Because those are all been cut up into lots. And in some of the others, like Brad Street, there's like 2 or 3, the state major conservancy and one of the land companies, either a warehouse or one of those.
That's all I had to report.
Good, thank you. And David, thank you. Let's see, maybe while you want to give your report?
Sure. 2 things I want to talk about. One is Lake Moxie Road. You have to sign later in this meeting the contract with Andy Webb to plow Lake Moxie Road. It is not the same contract that you got in your packet. We ran into a little bit of a problem with who was paying what, because the amount of money to plow the road is split between us and the Forks Plantation. And Andy went to the Forks, presented them with a piece of paper and a number to plow the entire road. $112,000 to plow 5.27 miles of road. And my initial number that I heard was $20,000 per mile. So that's what I put in the contract, and then it turns out that that was just a rough number that was being tossed around, and the actual mileage, cost per mile is $21,254 or something like that. So when the invoices were sent out, they based the county invoices on the initial contract that I had sent them, and the Forks got invoices that were higher than they budgeted for. So I had to figure out where the problem was. And the difficulties we had was the amount of $112,000 was for the entire road. They never broke it down as a cost per mile. All of our contracts are, we put out bids, and our bid sheets have cost per mile and then times the number of miles. So I had to go back and redo it. We did wind up paying a little bit more to even things out, but we're paying equal to the Forks now. And I have rewritten the contract, and that's the one that you'll have signed and approved when it comes to that. The other issue was the Kingsbury dispute. The lawyers have been involved. Kingsbury lawyer asked for a huge list of documents. And going through these, some we just simply do not have, never had. We set up the board, we set it up, all official and everything. We did not ever do bylaws, so that was one of the things that was missing. And we never achieved the goal that everything was done for. We were supposedly going to form a group, hire a contractor for all of our 3 town roads, Mayfield, and then Bright Plantation and Kingsbury Plantation. But we had individual contracts, and we went into this, and we never actually joined together. We all had our individual contracts, we ran those, renewed those. The salt shed we've done together. So I had all the paperwork before the initial signed contract that we have with each other, the interlocal agreement, and then I have the ones that I think are pertinent to where we are now. So I went through them, deleted a bunch of old ones, drafts. If I had things that weren't signed, I didn't bother with those. So I delivered those yesterday down to, was it Air and Wheeler, I think it is. Gave them all the documents yesterday on thumb drive. So we're going to be waiting for Ken Lexier, Kingsbury's lawyer, to respond to that.
Ken,
Arbitration is scheduled for like the 28th, right, of this month?
I think that was what was mentioned,
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard that's officially signed yet. I think he made the appointment with the arbitrator. Which I'm gonna add to my calendar. I haven't heard location yet.
Anything further? Any questions? Moving along. Pavel?
About the county website, so I just got an email today that it's about like, they said like 50% completed. So this is still like work in progress. Okay, so they're working on the content and on the menus, so still not done yet.
Well, I noticed on some web pages that the links to our Somerset County referendum work, and in others, they don't even exist.
Yeah.
So it's,
Are you talking about different platforms you're using?
yeah.
Like, yeah, because
Well, I use Safari, and on some Safari,
right.
it's fine, and on other Safaris, it isn't. And my computers are up to date, so it just doesn't work on one of my computers for some reason.
Definitely with the new one, we'll be able to check and make sure everything works
Yeah.
with the new design, the new website.
did they, when we contracted these people, did they indicate how long it was gonna take to do this?
Not really.
Are there any time constraints at all in the contract? They just take as long as they want?
They told us they were busy.
Yeah,
So.
that's all they told us, yeah.
Well, we'll tell them that we're busy when it comes time to cut the check. Busy.
And we have like great news, I was notified by Mike that home security grant that was approved and signed. So we will have like $89,000 to upgrade our like cybersecurity infrastructure. So all the firewalls that will be replaced, which is really nice. That's good to hear. And every day, like, we're working on the cybersecurity stuff, like constantly uploading like workstations, browsers. It's an ongoing work every day.
Any other questions or further confusion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike?
For the month of October, we processed 6,670 calls for service, which the numbers are down a little bit. That comes down to around 222 a day. Nobody's complaining, believe me. And for 911 calls, we did 1,914 911 calls for the month. Just quickly piggybacking on what Pavel said, later in the agenda, you have to approve the Homeland Security Grant for FY '23. Out of that was the $89,000 for a cybersecurity project. There was just under $30,000 for a UTV award that was made to Fairfield PD. And there was $7,500 for upgraded security lighting on the backside of the comm center, for the total of $126,511.04. Also, the hazard mitigation grant that I had discussed with you at a previous meeting that we were waiting on funding for so we could get the plan started. Update started, has been approved, it's been signed in the amount of $10,800. We're projecting about a $12,000 cost for that. However, we'll match the county's portion of that with in-kind, wage time and everything else. So on the 24th of October, we hosted, commissioners are, I believe, familiar with our Friendly Caller program. We currently have 10 people on the Friendly Caller program. We hosted 9 of them. It's actually a program that we've had for a number of years where people register, and they may be shut-ins or they may be elderly, home alone, just get that extra check-in in the morning. They'll call in and check in and say, hey, I'm okay. If we don't hear from them by 11 o'clock, we call their contact people, we hit them, and we send a deputy or an officer out to check on them and do a welfare check. We did have 9 of them come in for luncheon on the 24th. We provided roast turkey and potato and stuffing, and they had a great time. They didn't want to leave when they were done. They were still there at almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, but it's nice to bring them in once a year and just to be able to, for them to be able to see at least some people who are, they're talking to on the other end of the phone every morning when we call in. So it was very well received. And as we just keep moving along with meetings with Jackman and at the state level now, preparing for the solar eclipse in April, and continue working on the CAD project with Central Square.
Did I get an email about that luncheon?
I mentioned it to you the day you were on.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Sometimes
I don't think you got a follow-up email.
Sometimes I need follow-up.
And we sent you food. Yeah.
You did, thank you.
Okay. And we sent him food.
I didn't get an email on Target either, so. So,
Thank you. Sheriff? Sheriff?
Patrol covered 390 calls for service last week. Some sad news, Major Pike's father passed away today. He was a retired sheriff from Franklin County, Dennis Pike. We have 6 COs in the class right now. At some point in the near future, myself and the major are going to come and have a conversation with you about B-Pod and what that looks like for opening that back up. What that would take, what those costs would be. You and Commissioner Cezak sent an article about Piscataquis and the federal government that prompted a call, had the major call. The feds we're all set. They are looking for more space, and that might be part of our conversations in a few weeks as far as our staffing package. And the chaplain went to Lewiston this last week for a few days.
Would the opening up B-Pod impact the electricity needs and?
Well, yes, slightly. So you have static costs, right? That
Yeah.
no matter if someone's in a pod or not in a pod. But I think there's more long-term harm by not using the faucets, the toilets,
Oh, yeah.
and additional cost to feed. Again, we would have to do a cost breakdown of the revenue in versus the offset of the staff packaging, and if we're willing to do that.
I was just thinking of the small part of, should we go forward with the solar array, how much more would we want from that solar array? And how much did that pod need? That's all. That's probably something that needs to be figured out as we go, but,
Yeah, I don't think it would use any more, and the county administrator would be, but we wouldn't use any more electricity than a normal pod. It's really just, you would have to look at it as a pod. The difference is what it is. It's more of a dormitory type setting versus a cell type setting.
Is the thermostat the same as the rest of them?
Yeah.
You're not gonna have much difference in cost.
I didn't think it would be that much difference, but
A lot of their cost is really tied into the kettles, the cleaning of the dishes and stuff, that's really,
oh, yeah,
really.
The water has to be a certain temperature to clean them.
yeah.
But we did a lot with we moved away from the gas kettles to the electric kettles, so there was savings there. But if we could augment those electric costs, I would encourage that. I think as energy costs go up, those are stressors on the tax base.
I know we're supposed to talk about this in a couple of weeks, but obviously you've got us interested. So, are we talking about, I mean, we're not thinking we need more space for our local offenders, so this would be for more federal prisoners or more state, other?
Right, so I wouldn't open up the pod unless I could have revenue in. I think that our county population usually runs somewhere between 70 and 75. The rest of the inmates are either outside county borders or federal borders. And we know both county and the feds are looking for additional staff. The only thing that's really held us back is the staffing package.
So in lieu of that, in opening this up, would that create a situation where you could go back to Penobscot County and
Yeah,
deal with them for those beds that they're willing to buy, whether they use them or not?
Right, so, we had, and it changes from, I don't know if that option is still there, but at one point, they wanted to give us, buy 50 beds. A pod can hold 64 now. That 64 is not a true 64, it has to do with classifications of the inmate, but clearly there's different outside entities that could provide revenue in, and it really came down to the staffing package. But clearly the feds want more space.
Interesting.
I was also wondering if the yellow flag law had been invoked on the person involved in the Walmart incident.
That's still an ongoing investigation.
Okay. But,
And I just, so he was out on $10,000.
Yeah.
We rearrested him this morning.
well, does that mean he's
He's
in?
incarcerated.
Okay. Thank you. I had gotten some feedback on that and some concern. So,
Yeah, as I explained to the press, the sheriff's office does not set bail.
oh, yeah, we know that.
That's out of our hands.
Yeah.
We did do a bail check with Penobscot County today. There was a violation, and so the guy was arrested.
But I guess if you are able to proceed with the yellow flag, that would be very good.
Okay. I'll email you that on that move forward.
Thank you. Any other questions for the sheriff? Okay. There's no unfinished business, well, there's always unfinished business, but it's not here. And we will move on to new business, Resolution 23-22-1, to authorize voluntary participation among county employees in a Heart of Maine workplace campaign.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second, SIP. Any discussion? All in favor? Go. Resolution 23-22-2 to accept the resignation of Reserve County Deputy James Lyman.
So move.
Second. Okay. With John, second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? So go, thank you. Resolution 23-22-3 to clarify the fall holiday schedule.
So move.
Second.
So I'm going to include in the minutes here that what you're recommending is observing Christmas Eve with a day off on Friday, the 22nd, and New Year's Eve with a half day on the 29th.
Yeah.
Both those Fridays.
Right.
Right. I know if I was an employee, I would prefer it that way. So is there any other discussion, or are we all in favor? Any opposed? No, it's good. Resolution 23-22-4 to accept the fiscal year 23 Homeland Security Grant in the amount of $126,511.04, and the Hazard Mitigation Plan Update Grant in the amount of $10,800.
So move.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion? All in favor? All good. Thank you. Capital Reserve expenditures, none. Unorganized Territory Resolution 23.
So that's the updated contract that Dave spoke about, so that's what you're approving, is that contract?
Okay. So it's the authorize the contract for snow plowing for the township of Moxie Gore for the year 23 to 24. It's going to be $67,370.01 for the year 2024, 2025, $22,102.40, and for the year 2025, 2026, $22,986.50 for a total contract amount of $210,301.82. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? All approved.
I just want to point out, from year 2 to year 3, those are 4% increases for the second.
Oh, okay, good, thank you. All right, warrants, resolution 23-26, to approve the treasurer's warrant for general fund, Somerset County Jail, unorganized territory, and TIF, unorganized territory,
Yes.
for a total of $405,099.30.
So move.
Second.
Second by SIP. Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
We backed out the community benefit fund.
Right, so all of that 110 for the Forks area groomer is coming out of the UT TIF. Yep.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's a go. Miscellaneous discussions, items, commissioners only.
Second.
Nothing. John?
No,
No? Okay. There's no executive session, so motion to adjourn. All in favor can leave. All opposed may stay.
Fair enough.
Now we sign papers.
Sign the papers. Sign the papers, please.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, you can sign that one, I'll sign this one. We'll swap back.
No, that's great.
Thank you for
Filling out the application
How are you?
I'm good, yeah.
I'm doing
is probably not going to be there.
Yep.
Sure.
A lot of stuff to fix, huh? We have a lot of stuff to fix.
Yes. Ongoing.
Good. Yeah,
There you are.
yeah, because I've already done that with a couple of groups, and so I have no problem. And I,
Short notice, but I wasn't asking you.
no, I thank you, because I got another meeting tonight, so.
So we're missing
But no, I think that's a good idea.
Going forward, went down, I think.
We're missing,
Scott. Who's that? Is that you?
that's me.
Are you a doctor now?
Yep.
Scott, you got some signage building up over here.
Oh, did I get this one? I got
I'm gonna put out another email.
There's that,
Just to
and
remind
there's that.
folks that application period is December,
Okay.
November 20th. But I have a feeling that we're gonna have to kind of navigate through
Oh, yeah.
a bunch of different options and alternatives for that, so.
So you know you're not supposed to give me the paper.
Geez, I mean, Lisa B. Davis said I should give that to you, so.
And you said, are you sure?
What's the beach?
Okay.
Have to make that.
Yeah, well. He was in a nursing home. His mother's pretty. And he's just, I guess he's just, he goes to this. And